First time I saw serialized MTG cards, it was on the Seer horizontal flipped, or the mirrored version that came out of Secret Lair products. 100 copies of Seer, 1 through 100, that exist only in Secret Lair, and you have to get super lucky in order to find one. Brothers War has brought us a serialized MTG push unlike anything that we've seen before. Popular cards like Mox Amber, Wormcoil Engine, and many other artifacts have been given a serialized treatment in Brothers War. But what is the future of serialized cards? Are they high risk? Let's get into it. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome to 2023. It's time to shake off the rust, get into a video. This is something that I've been wanting to talk about in 2022, but you know, at the end of December, I just took some time off and I haven't made a video in a while. And what we're going to talk about today are serialized cards from Brothers War collector boosters. We're going to talk about the price of some of them. Obviously, the most desirable ones are Mox Amber, Wormcoil Engine, but I'm sure some of you may be thinking, you know, is it worth it to drop $200 or $300 on a low-end one? And is it worth it to buy some of the middle ones for like $700 or $800? Brothers War came out in November 18th of 2022, so it has been a minute since it came out, and it was also in the shadow of Magic the Gathering 30th Anniversary Edition, which we are not going to talk about in this video, and it's just a whole other discussion. But that product kind of overshadowed Brothers War, which is honestly a great product. I love artifacts. Artifacts slip into any deck. For anybody who's been living under a rock, the serialized cards are 1 of 500 for all of the schematic artifacts in the set. So the foil schematic versions of cards that exist in Brothers War collector boosters, there is a serialized chance only in collector boosters that you can find those cards. So Wormcoil Engine, Mox Amber, many others you're going to be able to find in the collector booster boxes. So it's January now, 2023. It's been a couple months since Brothers War came out. So we're going to look at the prices of some of the cards in this video. If you do like these videos, click like and subscribe. That's a great way to help us out as we continue to grow this year. So welcome back. Let's go ahead and talk about some stuff.
On Mythic, Jetfire, Transformer, and what? No, chat, we did it. A schematic card, foil Wormcoil Engine. Well, let's look at the foiling. You
know, it's got to be such a good feeling to pull one of these cards, and I would love to pull one as well. We have opened some of these on the channel and pulled them for other people, but I typically don't open super well for myself. Grats to Kirknall, who pulled this card over at Rip and Ship by Moonshot. This is a moment that I've wanted to highlight for a little while because it is really cool to get one of these cards. Like I was talking about, 500 copies of Wormcoil Engine exist in this treatment. For anyone who may not know, the most desirable based on the internet memes of these cards would be 1 through 10 of 500, obviously 500 of 500, 69 of 500, 420 of 500, 111, 222, 333, 444, 169, 269, 369, 469 are going to be like the most desirable because of memes. But pulling any of these is pretty cool. So there are variants in prices depending on the number, which just has to do with, you know, hive mind and groupthink, that kind of thing. But let's go ahead. I wanted to show this clip just because it's a fun hype moment. And let's head over to eBay and take a look at some of the recent completed listings for serialized cards. Let's start with Wormcoil Engine. All right, so we do have 5 listings over here on eBay for serialized Wormcoil: 1200, 1349, 1799, 1799, 1799, 342, 159, 470, 62, and 395. So none of the super high numbers. Let's go ahead and see if we can see any good completed listings recently. On December 29th, so not that long ago, we did have 1100 best offer accepted. 2 Wormcoil Engines serialized, 234 and 235, a best offer was accepted. So it's safe to assume that Wormcoil Engine is at least $1,000. I would imagine it's got to be right around there. Let's take a look at Mox Amber, which is another one of the cards that's going to be the most desirable. So recent completed listings on January 3rd, best offer accepted on 2,000. On January 1st, best offer accepted on 1,599. So when it's best offer accepted, that means it's going to sell for lower than that price. We have 473, 143 that have recently sold. And then on December 21st, a Mox Amber serialized 377 sold for 1795. So these are obviously the big money hits from Brothers War collector boosters. These are the chase cards. And as of right now, it does appear that, you know, the price of these cards is good. If you pull one of these, then that's great. I want to talk a little bit about the risk involved in, you know, big money hits like these. You could have somebody who wants to prop up the price of Mox Amber. Say they have, just in this hypothetical scenario, $50,000, and they're saying, I'm going to buy every single Mox Amber that makes it to market. I'm going to make sure that if it's under $2,000, I'm going to buy it out. And then let's say, hypothetically, 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years down the road, you just start seeing serialized Mox Ambers pop up for $5,000 a piece. This person who could be price fixing Mox Amber is just saying, you know, right now they're buying them all up for 2,000 or less, whatever, maybe 1,750 or less. And then they're going to stockpile them, hold them for whatever, and they're just going to trickle them out over time. With a serialized card like this, it's really easy to target because you're not targeting a whole set. Like, take a set like Double Masters 2022, for example. We saw a lot of people that were saying, holy cow, you know, Double Masters 2022 textured foils, the Eldrazi Titans, the Ren and 6, the Liliana, those are all going to be like $500 or more a piece. We saw pre-sale prices that were 800 plus for some of those cards. I saw a Ren and 6 that sold for like 800 early on. And now you can get all of those textured foils for much less. It's because when you have whales, say a whale in this hypothetical situation, nothing on this channel is financial advice. It's all just for entertainment purposes. But say a whale comes in and is like, I want to buy up all the textured foils from Double Masters 2022. Well, that's going to be a lot more difficult, right? Because they're going to have to take a lot more equity, pump it into a lot more cards. They have to pump it into 5 textured foils that came out of that set. It's going to be a lot more difficult to buy it up. This right here is ripe for the picking. So it's like Mox Amber, the most popular artifact from this set, because it's a mana rock. We know that Moxen in the past are highly desirable. They're in the Power 9. Pretty much any Mox that comes out, Mox Diamond, they're good. They're just generally good. There's a couple that are not great, let's just say that, but most of them are good and desirable. Then a whale could come in and say, you know, I'm just going to price fix Mox Amber. There's only 500 of them. That's all I need to focus on. I'm just going to take my equity, put it there, and then in the future, I'm going to trickle them out. Serialized MTG cards, just looking at the cheapest ones from Brothers War. So let's get rid of completed listings, and we're just going to go price plus shipping lowest first. All right, so serialized MTG. We're seeing 500s for stuff like Keening Stone and Door to Nothingness, very like fringe playable stuff. Like Door is super specific. It's a commander card. It's not that great. Statuary is a better card at 700. But let's see what these cards are actually selling for. So on eBay right now, if we type in serialized MTG, actually this is going to be more narrow, but I want to see if it gives us more results. Brothers War serialized MTG, buy it now, price plus shipping lowest first. So we have 107 of Precursor Golem 150, 150s, Bonesaw 224, 209 on Key to the City. Okay, so we have some that are much less desirable, much less playable. They're settling out. I remember the first serialized cards that I saw come out were super high in price, but now as we have moved into January of 2023, the set's been out a little bit. Let's see what they're actually selling for. We see some are available for as low as 150s, but yeah, we had a Door that recently sold here. Let's go ended recently. So green numbers mean it sold. Bauble, highly desirable. Not only is it a card that constructed decks want 4 of, but it's also a card that in Commander. Players also want it in sweatier archetypes. You can see 389, 275. There's an Amber that sold. Staff, highly versatile card. Once you've played MTG for long enough, you can spot the versatile cards. You can tell this makes sense that this is going to have a little bit higher price. It's a card with more playability. 400 of 500. They're trying to get a ultra premium here. Looking for someone to jump in on the meme because it's 400. Nice even number. So you can see these are selling. As of the filming of this video, it is the 5th. So December 30th, Aetherflux Reservoir, 572, best offer accepted here. Caged Sun, $1,000. Number 1 of 500. Wow. Okay. So that's honestly, that's worth mentioning. Let's take a look at the I want to see the original listing. Look at that. Okay, so 1 of 500 sold for $1,000. That's pretty interesting, right? Because if we're saying, and Caged Sun is a good card too. So if we're saying, you know, like 1 is going to be highly desirable because that's neat on the card, right? 001 of 500. That's not that much more of a premium than I would have expected. If a regular Caged Sun is selling for like maybe $400 or $500 in serialized, you get a 2x premium on it. I would expect a little bit more. And we did have some comments on early videos about Brothers War where people were talking about the serialized cards and they were saying, you know, with baseball, and baseball is different because you can't actually play with your baseball cards. You don't get them out. You don't get to turn them sideways. I mean, you can, but they don't do anything. The rules can exist in your head. They were saying that, you know, serialized, people care when it's like, you know, 1 of 5, 1 of 10. But when you get to like 1 of 100 or 1 of 500, they were saying in sports cards, a lot of people just don't really care very much. And I don't collect sports cards. Maybe some of you do, and you can leave it in the comments. Let me know how you feel about that. The question here becomes, you know, if I'm buying something at this price, is it high risk? And I think that it is. Wizards of the Coast can take this one of two ways, right? They can say, we're going to not do this very much. Or they can say, we're going to do this all the time. If they do this once a year, I could see serialized cards being very successful. But if they start doing it every set, where they're just like, yeah, let's make a new list of serialized cards, you're just going to have a massive just dump of just the whole everything special. If everything's special, nothing is special thing. It's very much worth keeping in mind because they have something here that's special. People are paying for this. They're paying insane prices for these serialized cards right now. If I'm dumping $1,000 into something, that for me is high risk. Unless I'm like, okay, it's $1,000 into something like, I don't know, the S&P 500 at an all-time low, where I'm like, okay, I'm buying an all-time low, but we don't know right now. These cards have been out less than 2 months. Serialized cards have existed in a big way like this. Like I said, we've seen the Viscera Seer mirrored version serialized, but Brothers War serialized cards, they're very new to MTG. Do you think that serialized cards are high risk? Would you buy something that's $1,000 that's only been out a couple months? Because the big thing here that you could think about as well, because we have to think about different aspects of this, right? Which are, it's the first time they've done this. That's something to consider. This is the first like big push. It's also worth considering these are artifacts. So they're not as narrow as spells that have a color identity. They're more persistent than stuff like instants and sorceries, where you use the card once and then it's done, it goes away. I could see serialized cards being very popular on enchantments and lands as well. because permanents that persist on the battlefield, you know, even some creatures I think could be fun serialized cards. Brothers War, this was the last set of 2022, so they were hoping to get a ton of money out of this. Wizards of the Coast, good choice picking artifacts here, but we see now, a couple months after, where the prices are. If you are interested in buying a serialized MTG card and you say, hey, you know, I just want to be along for the ride, I would say don't buy something like a Burnished Heart for $900, but you can see it's 007, so like 007 if you're in on that meme. It's just the kind of thing where like maybe 1 through 10, you know, the zeros in here are very neat. Maybe people are going to pay a premium for that. But if you're the kind of person who's like, I want to buy a serialized card, I don't know what one to buy, but I also don't want to break the bank doing it, well, we see that there's plenty of them that are super cheap. You could just get the Precursor Golem Retro Foil 107 of 500 for 150. You're able to minimize your risk. You're able to keep your cost basis low. That way, if Precursor Golem goes for 100 and these cards have a massive fallout, you've only lost, you know, 33% of your investment, and it's only $50. Now, it could go to the moon, and a year from now, all of the serialized cards in this set, Wizards of the Coast said, you know, we're not going to do the serialized thing too much, and these become highly collectible. Maybe your Precursor Golem goes to $400 and you've made some money off of it. The other thing here is, like, say you buy one of these cards for $800. Wizards of the Coast says, we're going to do this a ton. In serialized cards, they kind of fall out of favor. People don't really care about them anymore. They no longer see them as special. And then you lose 33% on $800. That's going to be a lot more than a $50 loss, right? Now, the other option is you do buy one for $800 or $1,000, and for some reason, Wizards of the Coast says, you know, we're not going to do this that much. And then that's how risk works. The more you put in, the greater reward you can have. The less you put in, the more you mitigate the money that you can lose. If you just want to be along for the ride, there's a lot of these that are super cheap. Not financial advice. I'm not telling you to go buy these, but I'm saying that if you did want to find one for a reasonable price, I do believe that they exist. It's pretty cool that there are some cards that are outpacing the textured cards from Double Masters 2022, which are much more playable than some of these cards here. Like Pristine Talisman, it's a fine card. Precursor Golem, it's not that great. Bonesaw, it's specific and it's played in Cheerios. This is just the kind of thing where use your best judgment. You know your budget. I want to know what you think about serialized cards and what you think the future of them will be. Do you think Wizards of the Coast says pedal to the metal and we just do all of them, or do you think they're going to be more calculated with this? Do you think after 2023 they're going to dial back variants at all? Based on some of the streams we saw and some of last year's information, Wizards of the Coast, you know, they can't really course correct much this year. But do you think they're going to change things up in the future to maybe dial back variants and try to make the cards more special again? Or do you think they're just going to keep saying variants, 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 and we're just going to milk it for all it's worth? Welcome to 2023. If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe. There will be more like it. And we'll talk about MTG Finance. We're going to talk about some of the new products. I'm happy I was able to get this video done. I'm still able to make videos. Goodbye.